A little while ago, you and I were here when I introduced a guest on Zoom and saw her shaking her head, and I took that to be her disagreeing, in disbelief. And I mentioned it, and she very gently explained to me she actually had a brain condition that caused her to have involuntary muscle spasms, causing her head to shake. I was so embarrassed by it. I was so mortified, and it went everywhere.
Yeah, I remember you were really upset about it, but what was brilliant was how Teresa dealt with it and, you know, how you dealt with it, and actually what it's led to is a really positive awareness story. Yeah, it's a condition called dystonia. I hadn't heard of it, and a lot of people who were sending me the clips saying, oh, my goodness, look at what you've done, hadn't heard of it either. So I decided to meet up with Teresa and find out a little bit more about the condition, and if you didn't see the original moment, brace yourself, it's coming up. I have to admit, Teresa, I'm slightly dreading reliving this moment, but let's do it anyway. It really winds people up because they're just not getting as much for their money, and we can speak to retail analyst Teresa Wickham about this. You're shaking your head, Teresa. You can't believe it either.
No, I'm shaking my head because I've got dystonia, so don't worry.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm quite open about it. But people think
I can't tell you how embarrassed I was about that. And you were so gracious and you were so kind.
No, I was more worried about it for you because it has happened to me before, and it was great because it was live, so I could explain it, because people often comment about my nodding head. But I must say what I was absolutely staggered by was the response.
And the response online showed overwhelmingly that most people had never heard of dystonia, a condition in which incorrect signals from the brain cause uncontrollable muscle spasms. What kind of reaction did you get?
My granddaughter rang me. She said, Granny, you've got 2 million hits on TikTok. And I went, I can't believe this. It was a bit scary, actually, because I thought, who's put it on TikTok? But
well, I can assure you it wasn't me.
No, somebody must have just done it. But since then, both you and I have had comments about saying, oh, wonderful, somebody's been able to talk about it.
It seems a lot less noticeable now as we sit here chatting. Is that because it's a more relaxed situation? Have you had the treatment recently? Does it come and go? How does it work?
Well, I had my last injections. They go in the back of my head at Queen Square. I have them every 3 months. But it takes 10 days before it works. But it is a relaxed thing. You know, the trouble is, when I'm sitting at home on the Zoom, it's quite rigid, the whole thing's like that. And that does make it worse, you know.
But you know what struck me? I think nobody I spoke to had heard of dystonia.
No. No.
Does that surprise you, or is that your experience?
No, it's absolutely my experience. Even my local GP didn't know what it is, so that programme did a lot of good. So don't worry about it, Ben. Do not worry.
Very pleased to hear that.
Obviously, I was in bed early in the morning.
Teresa's granddaughter was at university when her friends spotted the clip online and she realised her granny had gone viral.
My roommate was talking about it, so my roommate found it so funny. And everyone was going, okay, yeah, but I don't really get, like, it's so funny, obviously, but what actually is this condition? Like, nobody knew, literally nobody knew what it was. And I didn't even really know. It was actually really good that that video went viral, because even, like, amongst me and my family, we never really thought about it. It was just, oh, yeah, Granny does that. We're like, wait, this is a natural thing that she has. And literally no one knew what it was.
There are various types, but head and neck dystonia, like Teresa's, is the most common. It's more likely to occur in women than in men, and mainly in those aged over 50. Dystonia is thought to affect at least 100,000 people in the UK, comparable to the number with Parkinson's. So why is it relatively unheard of?
I think it's because in some ways dystonia presents very differently in people. So you can have neck dystonia, you can have hand dystonia, you can have eye dystonia, and if you lined those 3 people up, they'd look very different, but they each have dystonia. We've had supporters that have been in shops and shopkeepers think they're drunk because their head might be going or their limbs might be going, and it's uncontrollable.
For the past 20 years, Teresa has been under the care of Professor Kailash Bhatia, one of the world's leading experts on the condition.
So we call this form of dystonia idiopathic, meaning there's no particular cause that we can identify. We think this is a circuit disorder. Something is going wrong in the software of the brain rather than the hardware. That's why you don't see any abnormality on brain scans.
So there's no cure for dystonia, but you can treat the symptoms?
So we can treat the symptoms, the tremor, the head turning, by injecting muscles in the neck So some muscles are overactive and some muscles are underactive. So the idea here is to inject the overactive muscles with the botulinum toxin, suppressing that overactivity and thereby improving the head posture. So you're doing all right, I see.
I'm doing really well because I go every 3 months. Yeah. You have a great team.
Yeah.
And the treatment has been life-changing for Teresa.
It's manageable now. I have 2 injections every 3 months there. Takes 10 days to take in. And then when I know I'm going to be in situations of stress now, I manage it. You know, if I'm talking to somebody and giving a presentation, I would mention it at the very beginning. And I've done that more now to make people not feel uncomfortable, because it's other people who are uncomfortable, not me.
Yeah, and the more people that know about it, the less uncomfortable people are going to be, because hopefully fewer people are going to make the mistake. Let's speak now to Dayna Ferdinandi from the charity Dystonia UK. We saw a bit of you in the report there about the lack of awareness. Why do you think that is? You know, where are we up to?
So I think that's a couple of different reasons for why it's so little known, and one of those is it doesn't look the same in everyone that has dystonia. So you might have neck dystonia and your head may be to the side, or as Teresa with the tremor, or you might have hand dystonia, at which point your hand is cramped, but those 2 things look very different. And so when people say they have dystonia, depending on what kind they have, it doesn't look the same, and that's really difficult, I think, for you to then be able to, as a general person in the public, be able to spot what that is.
And as someone who works as part of the charity, one of the things you do is raise funds to try and improve research into it and hopefully find a cure. How are things going on that front?
So there currently isn't a cure for dystonia. There are treatments that manage it, but there is no cure, and there is research being done. We as an organisation are a patient-focused organisation, so our main reason for being is to support the 100,000 people in the UK with the condition. And then we will support research where we can, and hopefully one day, but at the moment it's about helping people live well with the condition.
I mean, you mentioned the figure again there, 100,000 people are living with this condition, and yet most of us haven't heard of it.
No.
So raising awareness actually is massively important, isn't it?
Yeah. Incredibly, because for people with dystonia, not only do they have a life-altering condition, they then have to explain that to people, and that for some can be very embarrassing, or it makes you really self-conscious when you can't just say, I have X, Y, and Z, and people go, right, yes. What happens with dystonia is people say, I have dystonia, and people go, and then you feel like you have to explain and make explanations for yourself.
And do the symptoms come and go? I'm just wondering how easy it is to manage or to know when your symptoms are going to present.
So it depends on what kind you have, and also what treatments that you're having. And there are sensory tricks. So often if someone has neck dystonia, you might actually see them holding their neck while they're talking to you, or touching a part of their face. So there are sensory things that people can do. Also, if somebody is tired or stressed, it's going to come out more. I think Teresa mentioned that to yourself, Ben. So good sleep and rest help and being relaxed. But yeah, the symptoms can be exacerbated and can come and go as and when.
And what's the situation like for getting a diagnosis and an assessment? How long do people have to wait? How does it work?
It's different for everybody. If you find someone that knows what dystonia is, that can be quite quick. We do hear stories of 6 to 10 years quite regularly. There was a lady who had had it since birth, but only got diagnosed at 54, I think. So it can be quite complicated. But once it is diagnosed and you are sent to a movement neurologist specialist, then it's quite quick and it's manageable, and they know the condition.
I mean, I can't say, I've said to Teresa multiple times, I'm so sorry for putting her on the spot like that.
I agree with Teresa.
I feel as though some good has come out of my rather unfortunate blunder, though.
No, absolutely. I mean, we are a national charity. We're the only national charity that supports people with the condition in the UK. and for us being able to be here and to be able to grow that awareness on a national programme is amazing. So hopefully we can stop people saying what is dystonia, because that is really tricky for people.
Well, I'm very grateful to you and to Teresa and everyone else involved in enlightening me and hopefully enlightening many people out there watching today. Dayna, thank you very much. Dayna Ferdinandi from Dystonia UK.
Thank you for having me.